was. It looked like it was money. I don't know what it was. It was a flying saucer or what it was. It wasn't an airplane. It was not an airplane. It was down off the road.
You're listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast with your hosts, Ash Ellis and Greg Tomlinson.
Welcome to this week's Pursuit of the Paranormal, and we are carrying on our UFO month special. This is week 3 of our birthday 4th anniversary UFO month. And we've got a couple of things planned. Mainly we've got a new episode of Ash's UFO Files. So it is just me today, going through one of the more interesting cases that I've had. There's actually a bunch of cases that all happened in the same short time period. So that's super interesting. But before that, we did a TikTok live, me and Greg, a couple of days ago. And as part of that, we talked about all this current stuff going on with the drones. And we gave our opinions on what these are. And whether it's anything unusual or whether it is just something a bit more mundane. Because these drones and objects and lights above New Jersey, other parts of America, around the world, are everywhere at the minute. It's all over the news, it's all over social media. So we'll give our thoughts on that. And then we'll kick into the main bulk of the episode, so I hope you enjoy. And here's just the audio from a part of our TikTok live, which is TikTok/Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast. We do lives every week, so make sure you follow us on there. And people join our lives, you can join our lives, come talk about UFOs or anything paranormal. We've got quite a good regular audience on there now, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, so here's just the audio from that for now, talking about drones. Let us know what you think, what these are, in the comments or on social media. Let us know. We'd love to know what you guys think. And then I will see you shortly.
So I think we may as well crack off. The big news this week or so is the drones. Ash, leading expert of the two of us on UAP and UFOs. And UAP, to anybody who's not so sure, is unidentified anomalous phenomena. So that's the new term for UFO for people who have asked me off air what UAP stands for. And not everybody's up to speed on the tech, like the tech and all the acronyms. There's so many nowadays. So Ash, let's have a little talk about drones over the US. They've been over US military bases in the UK. They've been over US military bases in the US. They've been over residential areas in the US. What are your thoughts? So, but before you say that, before you say what I know you're going to say, I did put up a video that I found. This was to a major news corporation. I took the video. It's on our TikTok now, where the guy talks about it. These drones going over, and I think we can agree they're prosaic. But I'll come to you on that anyway. But he mentioned that they were actually monitoring orbs higher up in the sky. Over to you.
So
what are your thoughts, Ash?
I guess the skeptical. I won't even say skeptical. I guess the more, I don't know what the word is. Like, I don't know. I don't think the word's realistic or critically thinking. But like, to me, because I got a message the other week, we talked about it last time on Twitter, saying it was something like quite not abusive, but like wasn't the kindest message. Like I'm bothered, but like it was like, call yourself UFO researcher. Why aren't you talking about these drones or something? So I was like, because the drones, they're not UFO or UAP. To me, they are just drones. And what we're seeing now, like obviously a couple of weeks on, this has been going on for since it started in the UK and then over in New Jersey and all these other states in America, is what I think we're seeing now is some kind of like mass hysteria going on, because all of a sudden every single light in the sky is now a drone or something. It's like, why it's sort of got to the point where Venus, especially now, Venus is very prominent in the sky this time of year, and it is there now. And people seeing Venus, and all of a sudden Venus is now a drone for some reason. So everything that's being seen now is a drone, and it's getting took out of proportion. So people are like, oh, there's drones seen in all these different states: Oregon, Maine, New Jersey, Cincinnati, Idaho, all these places. It's like they're not drones; it's just lights in the sky, whether it's Venus, whether it's satellites, whether it's whatever. And some of them are actually drones. I mean, every single video I've seen, every single photo that I've seen, it's a clearly either a plane or a drone. But also now planes are drones that are coming over. It's just got to a ridiculous point where every single thing is drone. So it's blown out of proportion to something that it's not. Like these drones in New Jersey, and yeah, they are drones. And they're clearly drones, nothing UAP or UFO. The government or whatever is keeping quiet on it. Probably, like I said to you privately, about if it is any kind of national security issue, they are going to keep quiet on it. If it's anything to do with nuclear stuff, they will keep quiet on it. They just never have and never will talk to us or tell the public anything about anything that's nuclear, because it's secret and stuff like that, and they never have done. Even in the UK, they won't confirm or deny is the term they use, whether or not it is. It's just they don't tell us anything about it. So people taking that the government's staying quiet, they're taking that as they don't know what they are, they can't shoot them down. It's like, no one has said that. Not one government has said we don't know what they are, or don't know what they shoot, or they does not have said anything. So people are just kind of filling in the gaps themselves, but jumping far too many steps ahead. Yeah. So for me, it's drones. I've read a couple of theories as to what they're doing. I haven't looked too much into it, but because, like I say, it's not, to me, it's not a UFO issue. It's a military. This is like a military issue, not a UFO issue. So I've not been that invested in it like a lot of people have. What's your thoughts on that initial comments?
So I agree with you. And the more I look into it, it was just the fact that this guy had mentioned orbs. But obviously at that height, who knows what they are? And then the orbs bit really piqued my interest. And this is not like necessarily paranormal orbs like we'd see in a paranormal investigation. Well, it kind of is. But orbs get reported quite a lot at places like Skinwalker Ranch. Lou Elizondo said that during his time doing the secret access programs, like ORSAP and ATIP and whatnot, that there was orbs in his house. And there seems to be a lot of crossover between these bigger orbs, like basketball shaped orbs, size orbs, and UAP, and all the paranormal that follows along with that. So that's what piqued my interest about that. But I do believe that they're military and government. They're clearly not adversarial tech, I believe, because if they were, they'd have shot them down by now, 100%, because you wouldn't let a Russian drone fly over a nuclear military base without some kind of defence. The fact that they're going quiet, the government are quiet on it, suggests that they're just letting it play out, because there's nothing to hide in the grand scheme of things. And I know you had your thoughts on what they were doing off air as well, and it seems like a legitimate theory on it. But I do think that the lack of government like talking about it and publicity about it, where they're just not saying anything. Thanks for all the gifts, Sarah, by the way. It's much appreciated. Safe drive. That I think that's what lends itself to the enigma. I heard somebody at work talk about Project Bluebeam today.
So, I mean, it doesn't help because you've got local government and local mayors and stuff, and even senators saying, like, we don't know what this is, we need answers. Because obviously they've not been told. So obviously whatever this is happening, it's obviously coming from a high level, probably very classified project or operation that they're doing. Nick's put, hi Nick, we're actually living in a Black Mirror episode now. It's certainly weird. What do you think, Nick? Do you agree? what I've said. Because two of the theories that I guess prefer, or probably makes a lot more sense to me, is one of them is the government's doing something else elsewhere, so this is distraction. So everyone's looking at all these drones in New Jersey. We're now moving ballistic missiles over in the Midwest or something. No one's looking over there. We'll distract everybody over here while we're doing something even more secret in another part of the country, and no one's noticing. Or the one that I sort of talked about off air, where these drones, I tried to Google what they're actually called. It's HPEG drones or something like that. And these are massive, massive drones because they have these things on their arms, like these sensors, and they work better at night because the sun, radiation from the sun can affect them. They work better at night, that's why they're at night. And they can detect the gamma rays from nuclear bombs or from dirty bombs. And there's rumours that the US has lost in the past, like bombs. But there's rumours that there's either lost bombs now and they're looking for them, or they're testing the capabilities. Because if a terrorist cell or whoever did manage to get a bomb into somewhere like New Jersey or New York, these very populated places, the way they would find it is by using these drones. And they literally have, apparently they've bought thousands and thousands of these drones over the past few years, so they can deploy them and they would sweep the city, trying to locate where this bomb is by using the gamma radiation sensors. And that's why they're so big, because they've got these big massive sensors on them that are quite accurate. So to me, if they're testing that capability, they're not going to let people know that's what they've got, because they don't want the enemies to know that that's what they've got to be able to find these bombs. And you also don't want to scare people. If they are, maybe they are searching for a live bomb. I'm not going to tell people that we think there's a bomb in New Jersey. You know what I mean? That could go off or whatever. It just cause panic. Whereas they try and deal with it as they are now, or whether they are just testing that, and both testing the capabilities and testing the public's reaction to it. And for me, if I was the sort of government project overseeing this project, I'd be happy that everyone thinks it's UFOs.
Yeah, works
that's
well.
Just getting away from what it actually is. Everyone talking about UFOs, or we're actually looking out for a nuclear bomb. Like it takes away from what they're actually doing, so it keeps their mission secret even more so.
And it's interesting you say that, because there's a book called The Brain Trust by Colin Kelleher. May know that anybody who's into UFOs may know the name Colin Kelleher. He done a lot of work at Skinwalker Ranch, a lot of work with George Knapp.
In his house.
Yep, Hitchhiker Effect, all that kind of jazz. But interestingly, he's got a theory around cattle mutilation, and the book The Brain Trust is about mad cow disease and the tracking of it across the US, because it was a very prevalent disease in the 90s that affected cattle primarily, but it did actually affect wildlife across the whole of the US. It's obviously a big fucking thing for the US. So what they did was, there was these objects coming down and mutilating cattle. So the governments, three-letter agencies, whoever you want them to be, they were riding on the back of this on black helicopters and just rocking up, stealing cattle and wildlife, and then dropping them off again in the middle of the night, on the pretense that it was these aliens, whatever you want to call them, aircraft and non-human entities taking cattle for experiments. So they were actually using this weird phenomena as part of their research, not to scare the US public by tracking mad cow disease across the US, which is an insane theory, but it's almost like what's happening now. So,
and it's like say they stop doing this test, and if it is that, in 6 months down the line, most people would have kind of forgot about it. They'd be like, "Oh, remember when we had them few nights where all them UFOs appeared and then went?" So people won't even think about what was actually happening. It kind of just goes into that kind of, that the night of the UFOs, stuff like that. You kind of just go into kind of play into the UFO lore then, which is what the government will want, because it helps.
It's perfect.
Muddies the water.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect.
So that was our thoughts on all the recent drone stuff going on. I will just post-face that by saying that's our opinion. Nobody really knows what's going on yet, and I guess we shall see in the coming weeks or months, maybe, or maybe we won't. I guess time will tell. But it is certainly interesting. It's definitely a bit weird what's happening. Like I said on the TikTok live, I don't think it's personally UAP related, so I don't think it's a UFO topic, although it is all over the UFO groups at the minute, but I personally just don't think it is, so I've not took too much attention to it. So that's that. Love to know your thoughts, let us know on social media. And now let's move on to, so this is Ash's UFO Files episode 3, this sporadic kind of series where we look at cases that I've investigated or researched as part of my work with UFOidentified.co.uk. And in the past we looked at some odd plasma type sightings and a odd case a couple of years ago. These are kind of the more interesting ones that I found throughout doing the work, and it shows the benefit of the database that we have. We have the biggest current day database of UFO reports in the UK, and by having this database that we put together, we're able to spot trends and link sightings together that may not have been linked previously, so we can kind of get a bigger picture of what's happening, identify multiple witness sightings where all these reports are in all these different places. You may not get that, you may not know that different people have seen the same thing in different parts of the country. So that's what I like about our database, is that possibility that we have. So for this episode we are going back to January 2021, almost 4 years ago. And if you've seen any of my online or in-person presentations, I do talk about this briefly, but obviously if you've not, then this should be pretty new information. It's a really interesting number of sightings. It's not just one sighting, it's a number of sightings in England and Wales over one 24-hour period pretty much, but the bulk of them in a 16-hour period. So the first sighting started at 11:15 on the night of the 21st of January up until 4:30 on the 22nd the next day. And there's a further sighting a few hours later at 11 o'clock at night, and that's on the 31st of January. So the bulk of them, the 4 sightings, are in this one sort of 16-hour period, and that's what we're kind of going to be concentrating on with this episode. So it's really interesting. The first sighting was in Tadley in Hampshire. Like I say, this was at about 11:15 on the 21st of January, and the witness was outside having a smoke and they're watching the night sky, as you do, and they saw 3 purple lights in a triangle formation. As the lights neared, they suddenly stopped and became stationary for about 2 to 3 minutes. They then started moving slowly in the direction of Newbury, Berkshire, before suddenly travelling in a different direction, seemingly without turning. The witness was quite concerned due to the close proximity of AWE, who manufactures and maintains the UK's Trident nuclear warheads. And we know there's that history with UFOs and nuclear sites and nuclear missiles, and with all the drone stuff at the minute, people saying it's been seen above nuclear bases. So the witness was concerned that this UFO that was making odd movements, unnatural movements, was near to that building which builds and looks after some of the UK's Trident warheads. Moving on a couple of hours to 2:20 in the morning on the 22nd of January 2021, and this is up north in Stockport, Greater Manchester, not too far from me actually. And this witness noticed 4 or 5 very bright white lights through the trees, moving in a unconventional manner. Upon viewing with binoculars, he saw 3 large, pulsating and spinning, silvery white, very bright lights in the shape of an equilateral triangle. In between the 3 main lights, there were bright red and gold and copper colour lights flashing intermittently. The object was moving slowly and changing shape to various forms of different sized triangles. The lights were observed for around 3 minutes before they were lost behind clouds. The third sighting was a bit later on in the morning. This was 10:15 on the 22nd of January in Wolverhampton in the West Midlands. And in this one, after hearing a loud rumble, the witness looked up and saw two objects high up travelling from west to east. One of the objects was definitely an aircraft, grey in colour and with visible contrails. The second object was larger, triangle shaped and also grey coloured. Through binoculars, the witness saw no lights or any features or contrails, just a featureless triangle shape. And upon looking on flight radar, at the time and the date of the witness said, we can see that there was this Airbus Voyager RAF plane that had taken off from Brize Norton, sort of doing a recce, flying around, but there's no other aircraft around it. So the witness definitely saw this plane, but he said it was accompanied by this grey triangle. So could it have been escorting this plane? Was it UFO? Was it experimental aircraft? Just this weird grey featureless triangle seemingly being escorted by this RAF plane. Moving on now to the afternoon of the 22nd of January, just before 4:30 in the afternoon, and we're now in South Wales in Blackwood, Monmouthshire. And after receiving a call from a relative who lives on the same estate, the witness looked out of his upstairs window and saw two clusters of objects in the sky. The first cluster appeared to be two dark, sphere-shaped objects. The second cluster, which was around half a mile behind the first, consisted of two spheres and one dark-coloured, triangle-shaped object. And the witness likened it to the B-2 stealth bomber, the famous black, looks like a black triangle, plane. These clusters were observed for 1 minute before they disappeared into the clouds. So that's 4 sightings, all from different parts of the country, all within this, I think it's 18-hour period, and they all seem to be on kind of the west side of England, like on the west coast, not coast, but on the west kind of edge of England, on the like England-Wales border, because you've got Stockport in the northwest, Wolverhampton in the West Midlands, Blackwood, which is South Wales but near to Cardiff, and Tadley in Hampshire. So it's like kind of like the object was travelling down the country, possibly. So you've got to sort of ask, is it the same object? It's so strange that we have these sightings all within a short period of time, and although they are different descriptions, they've all described triangle-shaped objects. So very, very interesting. Is it the same object? Is it different objects? Are there multiple triangle objects all coming out this night and this day? Very weird. And then a few days later, on the 31st of January, in Bristol in Somerset, again on that kind of eastern edge of England, the western edge of England, going into South Wales, a Facebook user reported seeing a large triangular-shaped object very low, just above the houses, and moving very slowly. The object was black in colour with a bright orange light along the side, and it was very quiet compared to an airplane or a helicopter. So this is approximately 8 days later, and another triangle object. And this one, like I said, very low, just above the houses. So it's quite hard to misidentify that. It's very, very low down. All of these reports, apart from the one in Bristol, was made to MUFON, so we've not actually been able to get hold of the witnesses, which makes it a bit difficult because obviously you can't get personal information of witnesses from the MUFON database, so we've only got the kind of brief descriptions to go off. I did submit a few freedom of information requests in relation to the military jet that we know was there because we've got the data on flight radar, but they weren't able to give us anything fruitful. But just having so many cases, like I said, the Tadley and Stockport accounts both report an equilateral triangle, which again is quite specific. A lot of people say triangles, but these were specifically mentioned to be equilateral triangles. The Blackwood report had clusters of sphere objects as well as the triangle. The Wolverhampton sighting and the military aspect to it. Could they all just be misidentifications? With so many reports in such a small period of time, is that likely? To add to this, a day later, on the 23rd of January, there's actually a red and white triangular shape of light seen in Leeds, West Yorkshire. Don't have much more information apart from that, so not really included it properly, but just another triangle. Again, described slightly differently, but in the same kind of part of the month, in the same sort of 8-9 day period, another triangle shaped object being seen. And this takes us back to the 90s, where there was the big spate of UFO triangle sightings, particularly in reference probably to the development of the B-2 stealth bomber. My own sighting in 1997 was a black triangle, so I've always had that kind of extra love for reports like this. So to get all these together in one place is pretty cool. Don't forget, you've also have the kind of the Belgian UFO wave back in the late 80s, early 90s. One of the most famous kind of bunch of sightings, and that refers to, again, large triangular craft that was seen by police officers in Belgium, bright lights in triangular formation, and the central red light, which has become quite synonymous with triangle UFO sightings. These three lights in the triangle with a red light in the middle. Although none of these reported that red light, apart from one of them did say they had like copper coloured lights in the middle, but none of the others sort of mentioned having any lights in the middle like these do. This Belgian UFO wave on the night of March the 30th in 1990, Belgian Air Force F-16 fighter jets were scrambled to investigate the reports. They were detected on radar, and obviously the plane tried to intercept them, but the UFOs reportedly performed manoeuvres beyond the capabilities of any known aircraft at the time, such as rapid acceleration and sharp changes in altitude. More close to home, we had the Dudley Dorito, which is affectionately known by people in the Midlands, not far from Birmingham. Again, this triangular shape, it's been a kind of a staple of UFO reports for decades now. Every year when we do our annual sort of data look at all the sightings throughout the year in our annual report that you can see on the website, triangles is usually within the top 5 reported shapes. We have star-like, orbs, disc, cylinder or tic-tac shape, and triangle. They're usually the top 5 reported shapes, and that also goes along with what's happening in the USA. The Arrow report that recently came out, they had their data, and again triangle was one of the, I think, in the top 5 or top 6 of reported shapes. So they're still being seen. Like I say, my own sighting was a black triangle that was clearly visible. Quite a few of us saw it, and that was kind of the typical 3 lights, one in each corner of the triangle. Wasn't equilateral, it's like longer going out, but it didn't have the light in the middle or anything like that. But it was definitely a single craft, because you could sort of see the sky getting dark, like it was covering the sky up. It is a physical, definitely 100% a physical craft, rather than 3 lights in a formation, because any 3 lights do make a triangle. Any 3 objects together make what you call a triangle, so it's quite hard at night, especially if you have 3, it could be 3 satellites, Starlink trains, if they're kind of near each other, that could look like a triangle, but it's actually 3 lights. Chinese lanterns, when they were popular, they're not as popular now, just because obviously I think they're banned from being bought nowadays, but they were popular for some time. And you say people, there's these red glowing lights, these red glowing orbs, and it was a triangle with red glowing orbs. It's just 3 different lights, and they will always make a triangle. So you do have to be careful when people say that it was a triangle shape, that it isn't 3 individual lights, especially in these cases when we've got these 5 or 6 reports. Some are different from each other. Some do sound like they were physical craft, physically a triangle at least. The one that's low over the houses, the one being escorted by a military jet, they probably more likely to be an actual triangle. The other ones, just because we have the limited information available, it's quite hard to judge it too much, so we've got to, like I say, be careful in how we're describing it without that further information. These are just basic brief descriptions that we've got to work with, having not been able to get the witnesses to actually give us more in-depth information. But interesting nonetheless. It's one that I do like to include on my talks because it does highlight the importance of databases like ours, where we're bringing these sightings together. Like if you listen to episode 2 of Ash's UFO Files, that was 4 sightings across the UK around the same time. I think that was over a 6-hour period, 4 different parts of the country: Scotland, London, Greater Manchester and Lincolnshire. And that was all, and these all had photo and video. I was able to talk to the witnesses in most of these cases. So I was able to do an in-depth kind of investigation on that one. And that did look to be the same object being seen by 4 different people. And these were all reported in 4 different places. But with our database, we're able to bring these together, identify these little flaps or these little sightings that could be linked. In that case, I think they definitely were somehow. Like these triangle sightings, to have so many in one day effectively is pretty insane, because we don't see that very often. Like you might get 1 sighting or 2 sightings a day, less than that. To have so many in one day makes you think something's happened here. Like, this needs further investigation. This needs someone to look into it a bit more. With this one we couldn't, just because we didn't have the witness details, but it's one that's on the radar. It's one that I still sort of go back to. If I do ever manage to get hold of witnesses or anybody else that saw anything on them couple of days, then we could kind of reopen the case and try and do a bit more in-depth research into it. But as it stands, that's all we got. But I hope you enjoyed that. Just a little bit of interesting cases that I find that I like, and I think it's just good to share people and that these things are being seen. We have no footage of these cases in this case, which is quite sad. No photos, no videos. One of the witnesses gave us a sketch. It was the Tadley, Hampshire case. He did do a sketch kind of showing the direction of movement and what each sort of corner looked like. But apart from that, we had no other corroborating evidence, apart from just the different witnesses over the same day. So that is Ash's UFO Files episode number 3. Love to know your thoughts on this case or of the drones. Let us know what you think. Got a great interview coming up on next week, which should be week 4 of our UFO month special. And Greg and I will be there with a very special guest. So we will see you all next week. Thank you for listening. Have a great evening.
Thanks for listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal with Ash Ellis. Title music created by Steve Yarwood and Ambienfinity. If you like the show, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. And if you really like the show, please rate and review the show wherever you are listening. It really does help. See you next time, and until then, stay weird.